I don't think I could see that on my side.
No, you can't see that. But now, by the way, everybody who's watching this right now, hello. But now what you can do, Chris, is you should be able to see a place with comments or something you can click on somewhere. Look all over. There should be something.
Oh, yep.
So what is that? Is that in your upper right corner?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can
Yeah.
tell people in the future because yeah, I don't know. I don't know what your side looks like. They don't show me that. But I've got a little comment thing. It looks like new job can't take part. So CC right, yes, this is the new time for the winter time for Gospel Two Wheels. It's going to be Jeremy Mullen Fridays. What is going on, Elijah? These are just the folks coming in. We got some people. We're going to do our full live opening here in just a second with Mr. Chris Dylan Vestal, the one, the only. Chris Burns, what's going down? And Chris Vestal, if I interrupt you to ask a question, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, because I try to keep up with the comments so I don't miss too many because people are, they want to know things. So
I've watched many of your videos, and I've been in the comments of many of your videos. Yeah, so yes, I get it.
So sorry if I cut you off. Not on purpose. So early watchers, we are here. It is almost 6 o'clock. Both of us in Western Colorado. Actually, this is the closest I've been to a live interview. The first one we did like this was from New Zealand. And then Dan was from Washington, and now we're Grand Junction. So that's awesome. All right.
If you ever Brian, Brian in Texas.
Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna get. I forgot Brian in Texas, and then we're gonna get. Hopefully, we're gonna get John Bruckbauer. Do you know Johnny? From System Tech Racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully, I get Johnny in there. Yeah, he's hilarious. He's all. I don't know. I'm like, just come on the show, God. People,
I'm surprised he's gonna do it.
He might not do it. Like, he hasn't committed. Like, it's not for sure. I'll get him to do it though. All right, Keith McQueen, Roger Hurd, what is going down? All right, guys, here we are. Welcome to the Gospel Two Wheels, where the coffee's hot, the bikes are fast, and your comments are absolutely ridiculous. We are here with the one and only Chris Vestal of MotoMinded. Originally based out of Colorado Springs, right?
Correct.
And now on the right side of the hill, over in Grand Junction. I guess it's the left side. It's right and left at the same time. That's an interesting one.
I heard a new saying: "West slope, best slope." I love it.
Yes, it is the best slope. And he has moved MotoMinded all told. Right, you're gone from the Front Range, right? No more.
Right.
Nice. And so, Chris, give us a quick rundown on who you are, what you do, any kind of information you want to let people know.
Yeah, I own a small company, MotoMinded. We design, manufacture, and sell dirt bike accessories. We're probably best known for our LED kits, and we're still continuing with that. I guess the elevator pitch is we allow you to take cool stuff and mount it on your bike. So, first and foremost, we create mounts, and we create a lot of them. And whether they be LEDs or GPSs or waterproof switches, that's what we're doing lately. Yeah.
Nice. And how did you get into that? Like, what's your background before this? Because MotoMinded is a relatively young company.
Yeah. I've always been in some kind of 3D design. So out of college, I just wanted to design cars in some way. I was a big General Motors fan, and I just wanted to design cars. I was in Northwest Indiana, so not far from Michigan, not far from Detroit, and also not far from Central Indiana, where a lot of manufacturing is going on for General Motors. So I ended up down there working for GM in lighting design, and working on, I ended up being an expert on DOT standards, which is not fun. Just living in a 3-ring binder all day, and realized that the corporate world was not for me, and took those 3D drawing skills I had. We're talking I'm old, early 90s. I was doing this, and moved it into. I worked for an engineering company in the steel mills for a little bit, and then went off on my own to start a computer animation company, and that and made its first architectural renderings, and then went into like biomedical animations. Um, still 3D drawing. Drawing in 3D was still the core of what I was doing this whole time. Whether it's make pretty pictures and now make graphics. Fast forward decades later, I find myself in Colorado. Um, met one of my best friends, Ned Cease, and we ended up meeting at a adventure rider event. Became shop neighbors because I was looking for a shop in Colorado Springs. And a couple of years later, after hanging out with him, he decided I want to race the car and wanted me to build the bike. I had at the time he'd been getting me into road books and all that fun stuff, and I'd been making my own mounts for that. And I had made my first that year. I'd made my first like frame mounted deal, because it just progresses that way. If you get into road book stuff, usually start with something mounted on the bars, and then as you get better and your speed increases, you don't want that cantilevered weight on your bar. So once you got a beginner mode, then you start going to a frame mounted version, whether you get a dedicated bike or a bolt on thing. It's still bolt on thing is the most practical way to go. And we made a kit for him. He was in 2012. He was the only American to finish Dakar on a bike.
Nice.
Which was pretty cool, and on a bike that I helped build, which was pretty awesome. So segue to that, I made I started selling those kits. So it was a bolt-on kit onto the 2012 generation bikes. He was still racing carbed. Yeah, he was still racing a carb bike. So it was actually on 2011. This was right before the 2012 came out. So he was racing carb bikes, but the frame was the same when it came over. So I talked to a buddy of mine who was making the fiberglass part of it. Scott Ganchert, hello, if you're out here watching this. And we said, hey, you want to continue to sell these? This is pretty cool. Let's move this momentum. And I made a company, moto-related company, called Rally Moto Kit. So I still sell that kit today. You can get it on the website, but it's a product now. It wasn't the company. And I was still doing the animations 9 to 5 and the rally stuff on nights and weekends, and it just burned me out. And I was like, this is not the way to do it. So shut it down, got away from that for a little while. A year later, now we're talking 2013, 14, I started MotoMinded on the idea of what I call the pillbox. And it was, I raced the Mexican 1000 the first year that they allowed modern bikes. And Scott Whitney, who's the guy to write road books, he authored the road book. And I raced it, and I was on a 2012, the first fuel injected bikes, and we all knew the issues. They were, for the first few months, the fuel injector was the filter. It was the smallest, so it was clogging all the time. And then they fixed the filter issue, and then the random failures. So I carried in my jacket, I carried a fuel injector, those little O-rings and all that stuff, and had an idea by the time I got done with that project and that race, how to take that and put it in a container under the seat on the bikes. And then you had that stuff there ready to service or just swap it. Because at the time, and still is, it's faster and easier to swap out that injector than service it when you're out in the middle of nowhere. So I started MotoMinded to sell that product, and then got into the LED kits, and then here we are today with, we're close to 40 different products. We just started our switch line. That's growing crazy. We're going to start adding Japanese bikes for the bomber bar switches. And yeah, it's been interesting. It's been fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. And your manufacturing, I think, is all 3D printed in-house, right? I know that some of your parts, like the bomber switches, are aluminum, right? They're machined aluminum. Yeah. But is what you build at that shop you're sitting in all 3D printed, or do you have machines too?
So manufacturing in Grand Junction is 3D printing, and then we also have a laser cutter engraver. So we're also cutting sheet plastic with that and engraving it. So those are the two there, and yeah, and I outsource the billet, and it's currently BRP. So
Okay.
we send him our files.
Right.
He tweaks them to how he can manufacture them and makes our designs.
Cool. Right.
So keeping it local as possible. I mean, that's one of the big things I always wanted with MotoMinded, and we still do today, is keep everything local as possible. So so anodizing as close as I can. BRP billet, that's not far away. It used to be a mile and a half away. Now we're 5 hours away, but still close. A little bit of shipping charges.
Yeah, it's still way close.
Yeah. So we're shopping our packaging, all that stuff, Grand Junction, just try to keep everything local as possible. If I have to make a product overseas, I won't make it. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to do that with the company. So
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's been interesting. And yeah.
It's super cool, and it's funny you mentioned that. I just a quick note to the whole keeping things local and keeping control, right? I think not only is it cool to keep things local, keep the money in the community, the local community, and I would even say, honestly, the United States is a local community at this point. Just trying to keep the money in our borders is a huge deal, but keeping control is a big one. I actually just got this. I'm dealing with these moose balls. I don't know if you've seen those from.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious in so many ways. But it's funny. I talked to the guy at Intech, James Richards, is the guy who contacted me, sent me those things to test out and whatever. Anyway, the company Mr. Wolf, who builds those things, they're Italian, and they tried to go overseas to save money, right? Because that's the world, right? It's if to raise the profit margin, you either have to raise your prices or cut costs, and that's the way it goes. And they tried to go overseas with those moose balls, and they actually make the mooses for Pirelli. Also, they are the manufacturer in Italy, and they tried to do it overseas, and they could not keep control over the quality, and they said screw it, and brought it back to Italy, which is not the United States, but there's no one in the United States actually making mooses, probably because of EPA regulations.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
The chemicals. But so I think that's super cool that not only are you keeping the money here, but you're also keeping really good, tight control on the quality, which is why your guys' quality is so good. Let's jump.
Thanks.
I want to jump in and say hey to everybody. First of all, Keith McQueen says your lights saved my life at the Northeast 24-hour challenge. Bruce Kennedy, what's up? Chris Burns, what's up? Terry Hillen, what's up? Ben Meir, Binemere, also said me too, so you must have your lights too. Patrick Wakurka, Pickle, what's up?
Patrick.
Keith, Zach Farkash, Bryce Davis, what's happening? It's good to see you guys all here. By the way, if you're watching this thing live or later on YouTube, please ask questions. If you're watching live, you can ask Chris directly. If he doesn't see it, I'll repeat it to him. So please ask questions about anything MotoMinded related or anything really. So we have a couple things we want to talk about. First of all, you joined us for the turkey burn. How was that? Did you have fun? And would you come back and ride with us again?
Absolutely. It hit all the check boxes. We got out after gorging ourselves on a Thanksgiving day. The weather was great. The trails were awesome. I think I loved Ewok. That was a cool little trail. I don't think I'm giving any away secrets. It was all we rode everything legal that day. So yeah.
Yeah, and I just so you know, Dry Creek I consider it kind of a sacrificial lamb. Like I tell everybody about it because I think it's one of those. First of all, it's an open legal place. It's everybody's land, right? Like we're not, and you got to tell people somewhere to ride, right? Like you can't keep everything freaking sacred. I get a little bit about that. I understand some things need to be not blown up on the internet. Dry Creek with that huge parking lot and all that infrastructure and all that is a place that it's fine for people to ride. And then on top of that, most people aren't going to ride there that often because it's rocky and everybody gets scared. So it's not bad. And I didn't really get to ask you too much about your new bike. Chris has a 23 450 XCFW, which is the unlocked, non-legal, technically closed course competition only, 450 with lights. What do you think about that bike?
I absolutely love it, and I jumped on it. It's a little anomaly they came out with this year.
Yeah.
One of the KTM employees told me, like, this is probably the bike you're looking for, because I tried the 500 XCFW. That was my bike at the time. I had at the time I bought this thing, and I went. I got the Takamoto Co. ECU, just trying to prevent flameouts. It had plenty of power. I was just wanted to stop the flameouts. Because a bike like that, if I'm on a single track, I'm just grunting that thing in low RPM. It's just whoa, whoa, it's going around the trails, and it would flame out the worst opportunity when you really needed that, that front tire to pop or lift or go down a drop or something. That's every time it flamed out, and it was frustrating, and it was a lot of money, just to uncork it and get that ECU in there. I love the power band though. I love that motor. The almost endless torque, and so when this 450 came out, I was like, I think this is the one, and it definitely is, because I haven't touched that motor. I think I've gotten, since I've owned it, I've only had, I can think of 2 flameouts that I've had since I was in Rabbit Valley a couple weekends ago, and it did one on me there, and I think one when we were riding, but other than that, all the other times it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and you can't. I mean,
Yeah.
Bikes are going to stall. It's not always the bike's fault, right?
Yeah, and most of the time, I'm really lucky. I'm all that very limited, and sometimes, and probably was in a spot where I should have been downshifted. Sure, probably my fault, but I love it. I love the motor. I haven't put a dime into that motor. I don't think I need to.
No.
Other maintenance, and I swapped over the suspension. I didn't even get 1 minute. Suspension I swapped over. I love the air forks. I have Huffer at FSW go through them, and I happen to have a National rear shock. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that thing. I borrowed from, again, my buddy Ned. He let me borrow, when I had that 500, he let me borrow a track shock. It was an older track shock on PDS. So we're talking PDS bikes.
Yeah.
No linkage, and famous for, the third whoop. You don't know what's going to happen with PDS. And that track shock just never did that. And just that wheel never left the ground unless I wanted to. And I love that shock. And I knew someday I'd have to return it. And I was sweating. And then Warren at Enduro Spec said, hey, you should look at the track shocks. And I was shopping and found one came up used, a buddy was selling. I jumped on it in a second, and I absolutely love that thing. And Warren said it's like the last, you correct me if I'm wrong, but he said it's like, it could be the last shock you buy, because he can make it into a linkage. He could get all that stuff from it. There's the next tech who makes it. And you can make it from PDS to linkage. You could go from KTM to Yamaha. You could just rebuild the thing and not have to start over or sell it. And I'm sold on that shock. I absolutely love it. It's very close to the, what would be paired with cone valve, right?
Right.
Great shock. Yeah. So I'm happy with it. I'm really happy with the bike overall. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm excited they're making that. Hopefully they make a 500 like that, and a 350 like that, and everything like that. Make a version that's just open. Guys, Zach Farkash is asking, do you have anything light-wise for an old CRF 450?
2005 is the key. I see his comment.
Yeah.
So, almost 10 years before I started the company. No. We're probably not going backwards. We are going to do Honda. We are actively working on their RL masks. We're actively working on that with Ruby Moto. We might even do another Baja Designs version in there. They already have one in the RLs, but we are going to do a Honda light kit. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Real quick, I mentioned this before we started. I got to know, on the 3D printing, a lot of us normal people that don't have a 3D printer or have dealt with like a little home version, right? Or one that was at a school or something like that. We know that like those things take forever, right? To print something.
Yeah.
I mean, and we all, I would imagine we all know that that's not a commercial grade machine, whatever. But for you guys making parts, trying to crank out lots of parts. You said 40 different products. You guys obviously want to have lots in stock if you can. What does it take let's just talk about the chassis for an Evo on a new KTM, like on mine. Well, it's over there anyway. How long does it take from the time you hit the go button on the printer to you have a part to sell? What does that look like time-wise?
That's
on your
that
machine.
Evo bracket, is right about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay,
And
that's fast. That's a lot faster than I thought.
We're able to scale up. So we have 20 machines going 3 shifts a day.
Okay.
So right about before we started this video was about, we started at 6. So about 5 o'clock before we shut down, we ran the overnight. So the longest print, like our longest one is the XL bracket, that big old boy. That bracket takes close to 2 hours. So we run those overnight, and then we'll run a morning. We'll take the parts off in the morning when we get in. We run a midday shift and then afternoon overnight. So they do take a while, but we could keep up with demand by just adding more machines. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you
finishing doesn't take long either. Sorry.
What
So there's some finishing. It doesn't go straight from the machine to bolt on the bike or in the box out the door. We do some finishing. You might have seen in yours, there's little brass inserts, threaded inserts. We want a really strong, threaded bolt-in engagement. So we'll melt those in. Those take a few minutes. We do them in batches. But when I first started, it was called just-in-time manufacturing. So if I got 10 orders that day, I tried to make 10 brackets that day. And now I have employees and team, and we had to keep up with more demand. We're doing in batches. So there'll be like a week of XL brackets. There'll be a week of, the Evos, stuff like that. And then we sit on low amounts of stock relatively to like a big giant manufacturer. If you're a plastic injection molder, you're going to order 10,000 and fingers crossed. You don't have to change your design ever.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't think I could do this plastic injection molding at all, because we know how often they change. We just found a 2020 tweak that we have to change our brackets mid production, and we could do that.
Yeah,
so
right on. Yeah, that's awesome. That is super, super cool. Let's see if there's any other questions here. By the way, Rich Pierce, what's happening? Tony, Elijah, what's happening again? And Zach, just if you want something, I'm with you. Don't get away from your carbureted bike, but maybe just go a little bit newer if you want lights, or cool lights. So here's another thing. I would say it's really a very different setup than what Chris is doing. Guys in Havasu are making a light thing that's just like a mask, batteries, and lights. And you just put it on the front of the bike. You turn it on. It runs for however long it runs. I don't know. I don't know. I'm guessing 4 or 5 hours maybe, depending on whatever lights you're running. And then you charge it back up. So that's actually not a bad option for an old bike like that, especially old YZs. You can't put a stator in an old. They don't make stators for old YZs. Not the 2-stroke, but like the 4-stroke, the 09, like 08 4-stroke. Through lots of money and time, you can do that, but it's a nightmare. And if all you want to do is go ride at night a little bit, get something like that. Don't spend a fortune on your old bike.
Yeah, to circle back to Zach, actually, short answer, we have a universal kit with that same S1 Baja Designs LED that you have in your Evo kit. We have a universal kit, but we say it works on, I have one on my wife's little KLX 140, and it's carbureted, but it has an e-start. So there's just enough battery in that thing, and it only pulls 20 watts. That bike can handle it, no problem. I don't know if that 05 CRF is a magic button.
Because it's
at least
R. No, there's no magic button. There's nothing on that thing.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, bud. Sorry, Zach. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. Or you could build your own. Buy the universal thing from Chris, and then go get a LiPo battery from a RC battery. And if you know anything about RC, you can do all kinds of funky things, so that when it's drained too far. You get these little things that plug in line, and you can get a lot of time out of a LiPo battery, and that you just zip tie to the back of that mask and let it rip. You can.
And same thing goes. We sell the top end, anti-gravity jumpstart packs.
Sure,
And we
yeah.
use those as an alternative for people for the helmet light who want a battery backup. But you could go on Amazon and get a, I mean, it's not going to have hardly any warranty except through Amazon, but you could get a similar jump pack for a third of the price, and it'll run that light for close to 4 hours, anywhere from like 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
And we're talking now $100 battery you could get on Amazon. And again, yeah, it's rechargeable, lithium, lighter weight, fits in your backpack easy. You can mount it on the bike under the seat, probably on that CR. Plenty of places to hide that on the bike, or like you said, just get a. Doesn't even have to. It could be lead acid. Just don't let it get all the way down, but you could do a lead acid in there and really budget it, and you could probably get an easy 3.5 hours out of that thing before it's dead.
Yeah, and like I've got, well, I can't see them anyway. We have a pile of RC planes, and you can. Those little LiPo batteries, you can get some wicked ones that are not very expensive if you catch them on sale. And, I mean, there's all sorts of options, and they're crazy lightweight. Like, that's the one thing about RC stuff. If you go that route, it's super lightweight so that they can fly around on airplanes. And so you can go to Hobby King or whatever and make that work. Keith says, I'm in the market for a new helmet light. How does yours compare to other brands? It's the best. Like, Chris's mount for the torch light is hands down the best mount. I've used a lot of helmet lights, a lot. And everything from bicycle lights to Night Rider, they're bicycle but moto made mounts to homemade crap, whatever. I did a big long test on YouTube where I tested Desert Unlimited, Task, Chris, MotoMinded, and that little cheap one doesn't really fall in the same. Anyway, whatever. It's from who makes that thing? Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just,
I'll say it. Oxbow.
Oxbow. Well, yeah. So it's Oxbow / Dango.
Dango. Yeah. They get it from the same manufacturer.
Right.
I like the Dango just because you could chin mount that guy. Yeah. And I think that was the one you tried.
That's the one I tried.
Yep. GoPro mount too. Convenient, budget, go for it. But if you want something safer, 10 times brighter, probably our kit. Yeah.
Well, the thing about the Oxbow, again, Chris, I don't feel like this is taking anything away from your gear. The thing that I like about the Oxbow is that if it's a brilliant thing for someone who doesn't want to spend much money, who wants to have a little bit of insurance in their backpack, right? Yep. That's what that's for. What Chris builds is stuff for going fast at night. Like, what he builds is not that insurance piece because you throw it in there because the day might get long and your bike doesn't have a light on it. It's for like, okay, I'm going racing at night in Mexico, or I'm going to go do a 24-hour race like Keith is saying, or I'm going to do this, or I like to ride fast at night. That's what MotoMinded builds, and it's the best. Like, I think even in my test, I clipped a tree, and it flips because it's magnetic, guys. In case you don't know, it's magnetic, super strong magnet. I do this because I put all my helmet lights on my jaw. So click, it goes on. I'm like, and I go through a tree. Boom, it comes off. Doesn't rip my head off my body like I've had GoPros that were, like it doesn't try to remove me from the motorcycle. It does. The lights go out, which is pretty exciting. But I had a bike light too, so I was okay. But like the light does not go forward anymore. It's just, like I said, it's exciting, but brakes. Reach down, find the wire, grab it, and it's like, it's back on the helmet.
Get close.
Yeah. And it's a way to go. So like, hands down, best helmet light there is. And again, I feel like I'm qualified to say that because I've used lots. I've raced in Mexico, always at night. I've never been the guy to get to race during the day in Mexico. Well, I soloed it, and I got to race all day and all night and all day. So I've gotten plenty of daylight hours in Mexico too, but when I'm on a team, I'm always the night guy. So I've spent a lot of time at night kind of going fast. So, yeah.
I got Bryce Davis comment, Milwaukee 18-volt batteries. We are coming out with shoe adapters for our Torch helmet LEDs to put on DeWalt and Milwaukee batteries.
Really? Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. So that I'm always fighting. That was always the big hang up and frustration is, our light itself was affordable. It was the battery if you need the battery, and those anti-gravity batteries, we tested them. You get 4.25 hours out of that XP10, but now all these ubiquitous Milwaukee, the tool batteries. I mean, you can get a 12 amp hour from Milwaukee. It's a chunk,
Yeah.
but that thing, I haven't tested it all the way out, but you should go over 5 hours or close to 7 hours with that thing. And it's not a 1-to-1 on amp hours. So the draw is 1 amp on that S1 LED, that small LED. They rate the batteries down to 0 volts. So, whether it be 20 or 12, starting there, they rate that amp hour down to 0. The light needs at least 9 volts. So we can't 1-to-1 estimate it. So it's like, you could guess like 70 to 80% of that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like someone's like, now I can use all my old rigid lights on my Milwaukee battery. And
that's a friend of me digging. That's Terry
nice.
McCormick. He's a buddy of mine digging.
Nice.
But yeah, he knows how to push my buttons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. So the reality is, like, in a perfect world, we'd all just buy the highest end, nicest stuff, most expensive stuff, and it'd be awesome. And there's some things that it's absolutely necessary. Like the light itself, you don't want a pile of crap, because I don't know how much I know how much you know, Chris, but all these other people watching, there's circuit boards and all kinds of computery crap going on with LEDs, right? It's not like an incandescent bulb or something like that. That's just like this 2 wires, short, light comes on, whatever. There's all kinds of stuff. And if you have a cheap, crappy one, there's a good chance that's going to burn out at some point. Some resistor, some little MOSFET's going to burn out, and it's going to be an issue. So buying a good light with a mount, and honestly, my biggest complaint about any light is if all of the ones I've tried, whether they're bike lights, helmet lights, all that stuff, the thing that drives me the craziest is if the mount sucks. I freaking hate it. Like, I don't care how bright that stupid thing is. If I can't grab it and aim it where I need it on my helmet, I don't even want it. Like, I don't want to deal with it. That's with Knight Rider, for instance. They gave me, I had this, it was like a skrillion lumen, whatever, like stupid bright. And their mount was a neat idea. Like it was a cool idea how it mounted on the helmet, but I couldn't get it in the right damn plate. Like, I was pissed. I mean, it's a $700 setup by the time it was all said and done. And it's in a drawer somewhere. I don't know. Like, I don't use it. Like, the light itself, I'm sure, is very, very good. But the mount, I could not get the mount. And your guy's mount is, not only is it safe, like, pops off with the whole magnetic thing, but it's super easy to just grab it and go, and like aim it exactly where you need it. So, and if you've never ridden at night,
avoids that. Yeah, when it's fixed, the higher speeds, you're looking out the bottom of your goggles to get that light aimed, and then lower speeds, you're looking out the top of your visor. You're conscious. You're always conscious of how you're aiming that thing. Not as much left and right. That's kind of automatic,
Yeah,
yeah. And it always frustrated me with the lights that I had, and that's why I designed it. I want to be able to just, our trademark, grab and aim. So just grab that guy and tweak it for the higher speeds, and just give it a little bump, and now ride on, and it starts to be, in your subconscious, it's aimed right, and it starts working, and you're enjoying the ride. You're not worrying about adjusting that thing.
Well, or like you said, lifting your head up, because that's the first thing I notice with a light when I try one out. Okay, let's put this thing on. If I have to move my head, I'm almost done. Like, it doesn't take long for me to yank the thing and just throw it away. I'm like, if I know I can't like quickly adjust it, I don't want nothing to do with it. Like,
Yep.
Because I don't want to think about it. Like, and a good light with a good mount like yours, it's one of those deals. Like, once you get going, okay, and like for me, I've raced in Mexico, but that doesn't happen that often. Usually it's on tighter single track, so I grab it, aim it, and then I'm done. I don't even think about it the rest of the night. Like, and that's how I know it's good, is that I don't even, it's just like, I can see where I'm going. CC Wright asks, are the good lights still good in the cold temps? Lights, yes. Batteries, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the light is always going to be good. Like, if you have a good light.
It likes it, yeah. The LEDs are going to be happier because they'll run cooler.
Yeah.
That's when they start degrading, is when they get too hot. So yeah, agree. The batteries are the issue. Bryce had another question on the low voltage cutout. So it's just the LEDs. Your higher quality LEDs will run from 9 to 20 volts. Some a little bit more, some a little bit late, like 18 to 24 is usually the high end cutoff. So you can get the 20-watt DeWalt batteries or Milwaukee's 18s, 20s, and you don't have to reduce the voltage, no additional electronics. We want to put inline fuse, but there's battery management in there. So it's something I'm okay with selling the adapter, because there's safety management in that battery pack. So that's why I probably won't ever, I've tried it. The RC car batteries, like you mentioned, dirt cheap, ton of power. You might be able to burn down your garage pretty easy if you're not
no
battery
management
on this. Unless you buy it separately. And to have that all in one nice little package, I'm looking over here to look at grab something, but to have that in and it just works, plug it in, just shoe docks on. We have an inline fuse straight to our plug, our breakaway plugs. It's a no-brainer. So
it's way easier.
Keep pushing voltage up. Once they do that, then we'll have to kick it down with a buck converter. But for now, most of 20 to 12, perfect.
Yeah, and it's infinitely easier if you because my torch light, I have the anti-gravity jump pack that runs, and it's awesome. Just click. The one thing that if I could bitch about that is that because that anti-gravity, like you plug it in, you have to turn the battery pack on, right?
Yeah, I know. It's the biggest. I'm going through with a guy right now. He might be watching. He's from the I don't know if it's Sweden or Norway. He's somewhere, and he bought one, and he's so frustrated because he has to hit that button. He'll time out.
It times out, and that is the only thing that's like kind of pisses me off. And it only does it when I'm with a group of people, right? Like if I'm riding by myself at night, which I actually really enjoy doing, and I do quite a bit, I just go out for a ride. It's not a big deal, man. I suit up, get everything ready, light on, go ride, and then I'm done. I take it all. It's no big deal. It's always with a group of people, and they stop because they want to stop and talk in the middle of the night, and I'm like, and then it times out, whatever. That is super frustrating, but it's only then. It's literally only in that situation. Like, it's not like a deal breaker for me, but it is kind of annoying.
It's annoying, for sure. It's done it to me many a times. You have to get it out of your backpack or wherever it's stored and hit the button and put it back in. And you just want to go, just hit the little light switch on the back of our guy and go. I get it. That's why I also like the DeWalt and the Milwaukee batteries.
Yeah.
I look forward to launching this because it's always on. It's ready.
Right. That's awesome. I think that's up. I will definitely get a hold of you and get that shoe because that's the one thing I'm just like, God damn it. Because mine's always buried, and then the vest comes back off. And then I've actually had it been like, okay, ready. And I get it ready and I put it on my back. And then these morons, friends of mine that are riding with, keep yapping. And before we take off, it's dead again. I'm like, damn it, you.
And I'm not keep it on, blind them until they stop talking.
It's like I'm never mad at.
Here's the thing I like about our adjustment: when you get up to your group of guys, just flip it down.
Yeah,
and then you can talk to them because every time I roll up, I'm blinding them.
Yeah, there's a lot of etiquette that we should do a whole video on night riding etiquette, and it's going to start with don't stare at your friends with your helmet. Like we all know who's there. We don't need to look at you.
You this light here that I have right behind me on my. Yeah. It's worse than that. Much worse.
Well, it's horrible because you can't. It's already dark, right? And you can't. You need your you need your eyes, and then your again moron friend comes up and is like, "Hey man, how's it going?" I'm like, "God, what are you? You don't need to look at me to talk to me, dude. Like, I can't see a thing now." And so anyway. We'll start with that, and then the other one that I'm throwing in there is just shut up and ride. Like, just keep riding your motorcycle, and don't it's nighttime. This is not for like sightseeing and talking about things and eating lunch. Ride your motorcycle. Like we're doing something. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going to write a book on night riding etiquette. Oh, it's awesome. So let's talk about stators, because I just had another guy who's been all over my YouTube channel telling me that my battery is not going to last, it's not going to charge, it's not right, it's not all this stuff, right? And I felt like, did you watch that video or listen to it at least? Did I do a decent job of testing that thing?
Yes. I mean, you didn't even get 5 feet. You hit the start button again. You went 5 feet, hit the start button. I mean, that's where you're at. Like you said, you're trying to like simulate an extreme enduro event at night, which most people, it's now defunct race. The Red Bull Override was the only one that,
right.
Or then also the pre-qual for the King of the Motos when Jimmy Lewis was helping with that crazy, awesome, evil guy made them qualify at night.
Yeah.
And that was when we first launched our kit. We had a ton on that starting line with the pros and everybody. So to circle back, no, most people don't extreme enduro in the dark, which is when you would have a light on, fan on, worst case scenario. You did try to simulate that. And that was great. I mean, it took it further than I did with my simple load test at idle. And that's what people need to see. I've shared that video many times. I got to add it to my playlist on my YouTube page. That is the concern. You get in that position where all those things are on, putting a load on the battery, and that motor's not running long enough to catch up. And yeah, that was it. But different on a 2-stroke with that starter, as you know, just barely a and it's barely it's putting a load on it. It is the biggest load. You said this in the video too. It is putting the biggest load on that battery that the bike can do. So it was a great test. It was a great test. 4-strokes is going to be a little different just because they might crank a bit longer. That fuel pressure might not be right there, so it takes another crank to get that pressure up. It might be worse, but it was in that case of the 4-stroke, but not much. And that would be the test to do. I like that you're able to do it. The bike I had, I wasn't able to do that test. I wish I would have. Yeah.
I felt like it was because this guy, someone mentioned, well, what about if the bike's off for a long time? Well, yeah. I mean, if the bike's not running and the fan and light are on, well, I don't care what kind of stator you got.
Any light, any stator, any battery, any bike. Yeah.
Like if you're stopped and the bike's off and you keep the light on and the fan on, you're going to kill the battery.
You can't help it, bud.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then this one guy, he keeps commenting, and it's driving me nuts. He's like, well, 13.2, 13.3 volts is not enough for that lithium ferrous. I'm like, dude, if you unhook everything and just have that battery, and mine is the new battery. That helped actually quite a bit, I have to say. Quick plug for anti-gravity, AG801 battery. It spins that bike's motor much faster and gets it started much faster than the OEM one. And it definitely drops less volts, because the OEM one I dropped to like 9 volts when I hit the button. When I did my first test, just checking the bike out. I put meter on it, hit the button, and it dropped to like 9 volts as it was spinning. I'm like, whew, that's low. I hope that's enough for ignition. It obviously worked. I put the anti-gravity in there, and it only drops like 10.5 at the worst, and it fires that bike up so fast. And I'm like, dude, if you unhook everything, that thing charges at 13.2. I don't know what to tell you. He just keeps hammering on me about it's not going to charge. It's not going to. I'm like, it's got 36 hours on the bike. It hadn't killed the battery, and the entire time it's read 13.2 at a max. So anyway, whatever. I'm just complaining because that guy's annoying. But I felt like it was a decent test, and I'm glad you liked it too. Real world is a good place, right? I mean, your meter is brilliant. I mean, I don't have one of those. It's super cool. It's really good especially for testing lights and what they actually draw versus what they say they draw and all that stuff. But the reality is, you got to go out there and freaking get the motor hot and beat on it and see what happens. So, Quick, first of all, your buddy Terry McCormick. Hey, Chris, what made you decide to do the bomber bar switch? I love mine. I'm guessing there's a story behind that.
Not much. It was another one of those, like, I don't see anybody doing this. All these cheap made plastic switches were driving me crazy. And we, in my opinion, we sold and still do the best alternative to me is the SICK switches. There's other out there that are great too. Takamoto has one that they've, basically the same. I think it's the same manufacturer, but Taco does a few more steps to waterproofing and improving them. But they're all plastic housings. I wanted something, bomber.
Yeah.
I want it tough, and you see a lot of our products. We back it. It's lifetime warranty on that switch. You will not see that on any switch anywhere sold.
No.
Run that thing for years, break it. I'll get you a new one.
Yeah.
We'll repair it to get you a new one. Yeah, they're repairable. But most right now we're just swapping out. But the only thing we've seen is people are just tearing those little rubber caps. Someone loops it, or you got to really do something to hit those rubber caps. But people are hitting them. I mean, our customers are buying they want a tough switch. They're going to beat up their bikes. They want our switch. And I've been putting it through the tests, like the extreme enduro guys, like the Sherco team, and Sherco's really lacking and I don't have the fitment done yet, but I've had prototypes out there for the Shercos, and there's some Arizona boys down there, and they've been beating the hell out of my prototypes, and to the point I'm like, okay, I got one now. And our little deal, every once in a while we have to replace a rubber boot for someone, but no one's done anything beyond that. A little mark or lose a rubber boot. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm waiting to put mine on until I get that little connection from you. Yeah, I know. It's a
long story. We're not getting into this video.
We're not going into that. I get it, but because honestly, on the new bikes, that multi-switch is, if you're not in a hurry, it's no big deal. Like the start button's fine. And the kill buttons, who cares about the kill button anyway? Whatever, I'll just dump the clutch to kill the bike if I have to. But like, the start button is hidden on there and hard to get to. And if you're a dead engine start, hopefully you got your hand over it, I guess. But whatever, it's kind of hard to find. But then if you're like in the rocky, gnarly stuff and you kill it, and you need to hit that stupid button again, kind of hard to find. So I'm excited to get that on there when, I just want to, I'm a prima donna. I want to plug it in and have it be pretty. Because it isn't broken. Like if I break the other one, we'll just go ahead and swap it out and I'll wire it in. Having that button be easy to get to is huge, because I mean, on the old bikes, like my old bike, it's two separate buttons, and it's nice because, you just stab at the thing and it starts where, left or right, whatever you have it on, it's easy. Let's see, based on lithium knowledge, I understand the charging battery is less than, we're just talking about battery life. Someone asked, lithiums, do they have to have 14 volts DC in good shape, 1 more volt than AGMs? What do you,
Not all of them that. Some of them have pretty narrow window for allowing a charge in. Actually, the OEM KTM Husqvarna and gas batteries, when those first came out, they had a very narrow window. I think it was like anything over 13, don't quote me on this, but on the high side of 13, like 14, it shut down and wouldn't take a charge.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly where that limit's at. I think they widened it a bit, but I don't believe that 14 to maintain. I haven't heard that one before.
Well, and that's what this guy online just keeps like hammering down my throat. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, I don't always agree with KTM engineers, but I can't make like the volts that thing, whatever wattage that thing's putting out the stator is what it is, right? Like there's no options any right now, whatever. And the regulator, I'm guessing, is dialed in for that too. It's probably tuned to the stator to keep it at a certain voltage. It's a regulator rectifier. It's regulating voltage and rectifying it into DC. That's what they have it at. Like it will not go over 13.3, no matter what I have on or off or not on that bike. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking about that guy because he makes me mad. But Bruce asked, do you make stuff to fit beta two-strokes? Do you have beta stuff? You have beta stuff, don't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
We have the bomber bar switches. We have LED kits for the beta two strokes. Yeah, those are two things. We got switches and lights. Yes, we do.
Cool. There you go, Bruce. Highly recommend
One
it.
exception,
Yeah.
not the X trainer.
Oh, no, he doesn't have an X trainer, so yeah, he's all good.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Let's see. And by the way, guys, please ask Chris questions. We're going to keep going here for another like 13 to 15 minutes. If you're okay with it. You down for 7 o'clock, Chris? Okay, cool. So, first of all, have you ever considered getting into the stator rewinding business?
No. Confidently say I never will.
Okay.
So yeah, we rely on guys like Ricky Stator, Treltec, get some stators made. Baja Designs rewinds. I heard of a guy in the Western Slope near us that does that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll find him.
Well, it's Pat at Western
That's
Slope
right, you
Alternator.
mentioned it. I forgot. Yeah,
Yeah, and
but he doesn't. You say he doesn't do it like for a living. He doesn't.
Well, he does alternator stuff for a living, but he doesn't do bike stuff for a living. He's a guy that, you know, I don't know. What I need to do is buy another OEM stator and give it to him because he's a friend. He'll probably do mine for me if I ask him real nice and get one. But what he will do is give me whatever spec he needs, like he ends up with. Like he'll tell me how many windings and all that stuff that I could then like disseminate. Because he's not. If 15 dudes sent him stators, he'd tell them to pound sand.
Yeah. So my communications with Ricky Stator, and we had that bike I had in. It was Greg Huffers, and he goes, "Yeah, send it in. Let them be the first. You know, I'll be the guinea pig. Send my stator in because he's not riding for a couple more months or a month." And I reached out to him. They said no, they're gonna have to get a bike and get their own stator because they won't take one in because they're worried if they mess it up. Now that bike's not rideable until a stator is available, and that could be a long time. So I get it, but they don't know. That's the analog part of this is until they get how many windings they could fit on there, they don't know what wattage they could get out of these. And they did change it from you could get roughly 75 to 85 watts out of the XCF stators, SX, XCF, TC, all those series, with a drop-in stator or a rewind, but they can't physically fit any more windings in those with that small flywheel. And I get why KTM Husqvarna does that. It's that horsepower weight ratio. They do pull a surprising amount of horsepower from the bike when they're on full load, like several horsepower. It's crazy, especially that 195 watt on the EXCs. It's robbing power, so they put those tiny stators in there for the revving and to rev up faster, less centrifugal weight, and then also just that load that's on it. It's that it's a small generator. It's putting a load on the motor. So get it. I would say to get one rewound, if you know someone locally, go for it. Baja Designs they do rewind stators. They're pretty quick with them, relatively fast with the rewinds. I don't think they've done this new stator yet. If someone knows in comments, I'd love to hear. I haven't heard anyone that's taken it to Baja Designs yet and got that stator rewound yet. I'm guessing it's going to be around 70 watts for what you can use above what the bike needs to run. So it might be like 100, 110 watt, my guess. Yeah.
What do you know about, because I know that like in my experience with my stator and starter, for my YZ that I got from Panthera, there was an issue with too much magnetism because they were generating a whole bunch of power, like 110 watts over like what it needed for ignition. It was a ton of power. It was awesome, but it was overheating the bike. It was cooking the stator, and so they came out with a less magnet flywheel that then made less power. I don't know what you know about that on engineering level, and if there's any way to increase magnetism, because that would be a way to do it without making it bigger, right? Like like extra windings. Does anyone do that? Do you know?
And not that I know of, not that I've
Yeah.
heard of.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought that would
doubt
be an
there'd be a
interesting.
market for motorcycles to do that. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can, they're probably chasing after bigger things like, making a better Tesla motor or something like that. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine there's no market in our little dirt bikes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Can a stator put out enough that you can make a regulator with higher final output, like a regulator's part holding back on output? Yeah. I mean, can't you? You can.
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, regulator is exactly what it sounds like. It's regulating voltage. So you can, in fact, Trail Tech has regulators with dial of
Yep.
voltage, right? You can turn the
Yep.
voltage down, you can turn the voltage up. And obviously, if your stator can't hit certain, they limit together, right? I mean, if you turn up the voltage on the regulator to a point past what the stator can produce, then, but see, that's another thing, and maybe you can explain this better than I can, but like stators, I'm guessing that stator probably without a regulator on it goes to 60, 80 watts. It's just, or 60 or 80 volts, just the wattage isn't behind it. Like, because it'll throw big high spikes in voltage, but it's not pushing that hard with the wattage. Does that make sense? Is that correctly said? Ish?
Ish. Yeah. It is. Yeah. If you've ever checked like a stator, if you're troubleshooting, I did this for a buddy last year, and we were troubleshooting electrical system issue, and I was checking. It was I think it was a 300, KTM 300 XCW, and this was carbureted, so I had an AC stator, and I checked the voltage just to make sure the stator was okay before the regulator, and it spun just with RPM. It spins up to like I forget it was 40, 50 volts, pretty quick, and that would completely fry most bikes. And if it's fuel injected, done. ECU's done, all that stuff. So it's protecting, it's capping that voltage, keeping it there. Saw Bryson there, yeah, that keeping that 13.2. That is where KTM set their voltage regulator. They allow it a little higher on the 4-strokes lately. I don't know what the 24s are going to be, but it makes sense because those batteries, those lithium batteries, again, have that narrow charging window. They're not going to allow a big charge in. It's a safety thing with that battery management system integrated into those batteries. And so KTM's upping their regulators and making probably a tighter window for that voltage just to keep that stuff steady and happy, and the electronics last longer.
Yeah. And as a mechanic who's just worked on lots and lots of stators and had them lots and lots of fried, I always check stators. Like if I got a weird ignition problem or charging problem, whatever it may be, before the regulator, you're going to see high voltage, but it's AC voltage, right? Like, because all stators are AC. The stator itself is AC, period. And then it just depends on whether it pumps that power to an AC regulator, like on the old KTM, carbureted KTM, it has a separate AC circuit that powers lights via AC, and there's a regulator for that. Or if it goes to a regulator rectifier, which turns it into DC and whatever. Anyway, so yeah, the stators always make way more volts than 13 or 14. I mean, it's like at a high RPM. I mean, I've seen them go into the hundreds on a street bike, like 150 volts or something like that. And, but it's regulated to 14 and a half or whatever on those. And obviously KTM has it at 13.2, 13.25, no matter what you do with the RPM. So yeah. Let's see. Doesn't that ballast in the 300 sort of drain? Are you talking about the capacitor? He might be talking about the capacitor. That I don't know what you mean, Bruce. Let's see. Oh, quick note to everybody and you, Chris. I just the reason the new 300 isn't here in the background is that I jacked it up today, all in the name of YouTube. It's fine, but I took the power valve off. It's crazy. It's a very, very different way of running the power valve than before. Because Bulletproof Design sent me a cool guy aluminum cover for it. That's nice and whatever. It was very nice of them. So I took the old one off, and I was going to just install the new one, but then I got curious. So I took the actuator off, and then I unplugged it. That was the big mistake. I unplugged the actuator. Check that out. It's pretty cool. It's like a little motor. Anyways, pretty sweet little actuator. And then I looked inside the power valve cover. I'm like, huh, that's different looking. Well, let's take a look at that.
I like where your head's at.
Yeah, so I took that off.
I would have done that.
Oh, like, that's weird looking. And so it's a totally different system. I'm like, that's crazy. Huh, interesting. So then, so then I'm like, well, I got to see how it works while it's running. So I put that side all back together, took the pipe off, took the other cover off. That's, again, very different looking from the left side, the right side. I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. So then I did the little dongle switch thing that resets it, and so it's cool. It's all on video. It's all up on YouTube already. But like, and it shows it moving and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's neat. So then I put the pipe back on it, ran it without the cover on it. It's a full-on air leak. Like, it's crazy. I'm like, God, it's my brand new bike. Wang, wang, whatever. So I'm revving it up, but it's cool. You can see it all working. I put it all back together, and now my bike has the little flashy code again because I unplugged. And I reset the all the stuff, which it did correctly, but the flashy code has to go back and get cleared by the dealer. So it's back at Davis getting cleared again.
Yeah, tell you what, you're gonna figure that thing out one way or another, digging every nook and cranny.
I'm gonna know everything there is to know. It's like, and now I know that I did a little more research that would, because like the reason they gave you the dongle to reset the power valve, it's like, oh, that's because they want you to be able to do a top end in your shop, garage, whatever, without having to take it back to the dealer. You can reset it. Well, I guess you don't unplug it. Like, don't unplug the actual, because that's a bad situation. But yeah, it was hilarious. Like, I ruined my new bike.
Keith McQueen has a good comment.
What did he say?
Morgan stuck forks at outlets as a child.
Yes. I need to know how it works. Like, I need to know, but now we know, and now I can pass along that information to everyone else. But yeah, whatever. It's all good. Oh man, yeah, that thing. Anyway, whatever. So what?
I agree. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you on a comment now.
Yeah.
Bryce. Yes, Bryce. I agree. That capacitor will take a charge and that's it. Once it's full, it's full. It's not going to be a drain on that. And it's very, very little intake on that capacitor. They're pretty efficient. I wish the industry would go to capacitors versus batteries at some point. Maybe they will, but whenever I see like some new tech YouTube channel, I'm going to watch it. If they mention capacitors, I'm watching because I really think that's going to be the future more. Yeah.
Well, they're super cool, and I love the fact that the new bikes will run without a battery.
Yep.
I mean, that's awesome that it works because, I mean, yeah, that's a huge deal that you can start those things. I do still wish there was a Kickstarter on it. It would be kind of nice, or at least an option for one, so I don't have to bump start the thing because eventually the battery's going to die somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and which is fine because I can start it and ride it out of there. But knowing my luck, it will be at the bottom of a sandy ravine, right? A very sandy ravine, and I won't be able to bump start crap. But
that's right.
But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I guess that's why you carry a little charge thing on these new bikes or whatever. But I wish I don't know why, and you probably don't know, but why the W's don't come with that capacitor installed.
I wish they would. I hope they will in 24, but yeah, I don't know why they don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I mean, that's why I carry, this ain't it, but yeah, carrying around these little guys just to save you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally worked. We're getting towards the end of it here, Chris. First of all, how can people get a hold of you? Socials, all that. Give us all the information so people can get a hold of you if they need to buy something.
Yeah, at MotoMinded, #MotoMinded, all one word. That's the best way to find us. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm trying to build up my, I'm watching, admiring you growing your followers and all your channels. I don't have time. I can't imagine the time you have editing videos.
It's a
And
lot.
I just I want to build up. I want to build up my YouTube channel more. We're doing it primarily right now with instructions, which turned out to be a little bit promotions. But yeah,
Yeah.
YouTube, Instagram, our website, MotoMinded.com. I mean, just type in MotoMinded in any browser. We should come up pretty fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes up super fast. It's nice on Facebook and all that stuff. Once you do MOTO, if you stop there, a million things come up. As soon as you put the next M in, you guys seem to be the first ones up. So just get to the second M and you're good. What are your, if you can let us in on any new things coming beyond trying to reach a new bike, a Jap bike or whatever. Do you have any new products that you can like tease us with?
We're coming out with I've been working on this for over a year. Our new manually adjustable dimmer. So there are electronic ones out there. I stopped selling just because they failed so much. We have right now our dimmer is a non-adjustable, just easy resistor. This new dimmer is going to be manually adjustable PWM, so it is going to actually draw less wattage when you're in the low beam mode. I'm excited about getting that guy out. We have we're expanding our harnesses, our switch line. Like I said before, we have some new harnesses that we're integrating our bomber bar switch as. So the bomber bar switch is going to go on the other side of the bar, which means we're going to start doing lights, map switches, etc., horns, all that stuff. We're working with our buddy Dan North at True North Motos for a turn signal as well.
Nice.
So yeah, those are the biggest, newest things we're launching out here soon. You'll see those really soon.
So you're going to have a map switch for the new KTMs eventually?
As soon as we could get that thing coupler, that waterproof coupler for the new ones, yes. I mean, I'm considering getting a mold done for these. I just hope I'm kind of waiting. I really hope. There's a rumor that KTM's going to put a part number on that coupler, and then we could all buy that thing, and I could buy out. I could buy them, but they, we said we weren't going to get into it, but they basically, the folks making the harness for KTM Husqvarna Gas cornered the market. They bought the worldwide supply of that coupler. So we can't put our bomber bar switch can't work with that new waterproof switch. And I love that switch. It is waterproof, JST switch. It's great. I can't get it. Nobody can get it. And they say the next time they're going to manufacture and do a run is November 23. So
oh my God.
I hope we don't have to wait that long. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I'll find something to do before then. But yeah, it's a priority.
Whittle one out of wood.
Yeah, something. I'll even think about trying to 3D print one. I guess that would. The terminals, the pins, the little rubber gaskets, all easily available. The housing that KTM chose.
Well, so I guess here's another question for you, just based on that. Since now we're just down in the weeds on this, but what about another? Because it's a 4-pin housing, right? What about another 4-pin housing that's small and waterproof? Because there's got to be one, right? It can't be the only 4-pin housing. I mean, it's a nice one. What about selling bomber bar switch, comes in, it's all wired, ready to go, and then out the other side are the 4 wires that you just cut that switch off and solder.
I would love. And I know a guy who's done it already, who told us, he goes, I want your switch on my new bike. And he did it. I can't sell a product like that. I can't ask my customers to be cutting and splicing, and then we're going to have corrosion issues or who knows what, or they flip some wires and now the bike won't stop and they're on I can't risk that.
Fair enough. Yeah. Cause I've thought about, I was going to just cut them. And I mean, I do it all the time anyway. And I got these, bitching little heat shrink solder things. It's all waterproof and happy, but I get it. You can't, I get it. You can't let the public have that kind of power.
I mean, you can. Should you?
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Are
Oh
you going
man.
to be able to make money and keep the doors open and pay your employees?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Quick thing, Bruce Kennedy, supply issues are a real deal on the Husqvarnas. There are sending TXs with non-O-ring chains. They're putting brake tech.
I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
know that.
dude. Oh no, it's bad. Like they're putting brake tech parts on Huskies that were supposed to come with Brimbos. They're spec'd in the freaking PDF manual that you have to download. Thanks, but it says Brembo in the manual, and they're coming with brake tech gear. And then yeah, I had a guy contact me. Obviously, as you can imagine, I get lots of contacts from around the planet actually because of all the videos on that bike. And this guy's like, "Hey, dude, look at my new TX." And he takes the chain, and it's a freaking non-O-ring crappy moto chain because they're ran out. Like it's like they just ran out of chains. I guess I don't know.
I guess if I was waiting on a bike and they're like, hey, they would say, hey, you okay with this subpar chain? Yeah, get me the bike. I'll put a
Sure.
better chain on it. That's a wear item, sure.
Right.
But yeah, it's a real
But
problem. We know
but
it. It's
KTM
been a
should
real
not.
problem for a few years. Yeah.
They need to. I mean, because actually, what happened is that guy, the dealer didn't even know. Right. The dealership, they just unboxed. They didn't look at it that close. They just sort of PDI in the bike, get it all ready, tighten everything down. Okay, it's good. Tell the guy, here's your new bike. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your money. He goes home and he's like, what the hell? Not O-ring chain. And so then he starts looking through the specs. And it's supposed to come with a blah, blah, blah DID. And he's like, ah. So dealership, and this is, I don't even know where this is, some other state. Stand-up dealership. He goes back in and he's like, hey guys, I don't mean to be a jerk. And I'm really happy with my motorcycle, but this is wrong. What's the story? And they're like, they went, grabbed a chain off the wall, that they had for sale, installed an X-ring chain on it, said, sorry, we'll deal with KTM on this. So they were a great dealership. That's who you want to deal with, right? I mean, that's the people you want to deal with. But they can't do that with brake tech and Brembo. Like they're not going to find a Brembo thing. I don't know that there's anything wrong with brake tech, but you pay a premium for Brembos, and you would expect to get Brembos. I mean, again, I'm with.
Isn't brake tech what's on the gas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's fine from what I hear. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but that it's totally fine from everybody that I know that has one. But it doesn't say Brembo on it, and again, that's why gas is $1,000 less. Is it's components like that, right? It's the hydraulics or brake tech, and this is that, and so whatever. I mean, again, I'm like you, if they're like, I'm sitting there looking at the new motorcycle, and it's like, well, you could either wait 6 months, we could get the right parts, or you can have it. I'm taking it. Like I don't care. It's not that big a deal, but it is an interesting situation. Cool. Bryce Davis, plug and play is where most people need to stay. I agree. Fair enough. Which is why Dan North is doing a good job with his harnesses. They're very plug and play.
Yep.
Those things are nice. I've been very happy with the one on my bike. It seems, it looks OEM. I like that. And it works good. He sets them up with the OEM plugs, and I took your light, and because I have how many. 2 S1s. I still need to get one from you for my old bike. We need to talk about, anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I just clipped all the things off of all of them and then put my own waterproof connectors so I can move things around. Because I put an S1 on the bottom of my chainsaw mount, so I'd have a light when I have a chainsaw mount on.
Yeah, I remember you did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just made all. It's like a universal plug and play for everything. I can move every light to everything and just click, 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 click with a cheap waterproof connector, which works just fine. So, I still want to know how to wire a MotoMinded headlight to my 22 Beta 300RR running the race harness off the stator. It's an RX, so he's got the RX harness, which is that Moto one, if you don't know.
So that's a carb bike still, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't. I mean, you could run the little S1 20 watts off that direct off the battery, but it's just like the KTM stators. There was a split. Is very little DC going to the battery, just enough to refresh that battery after hitting the start button a few times. The majority of the output's going on the AC circuit. LEDs need AC, clean DC power to run. So if you're going that way, if you do that race harness all the way, well, he said race harness off the stator.
So yeah,
he's talking about.
Jim, that's Jim Nash. He's a pretty smart dude. So Jim, maybe Chris, if you have time to stay here for a little longer, see if we can get a little more information on that, because his 22 Beta 300RR would have plenty of juice on board to run a light, I would imagine, right?
On the AC side, yeah, you could put the Baja Designs. We all include the Baja Designs rectifier that converts it. Yep. And he has roughly 100 watts on the AC side. Yes, there's a flicker at low RPM, idle, but if you're moving on the trail, the light on the ground, that flicker goes away. You don't notice it. You stop and get off the bike and look at the light, you're going to see the flicker. But riding, you don't notice. So it's a good fix for sure. And the kits we sell for betas run off the AC side, with the exception of the fuel injected betas. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jim, I'd love to know, because that 300RX it's like the XC. It's like a 300SX from KTM or from Beta.
All right.
So I don't know why he's got the harness off of that on his RR, because like I said, the RX is just a moto bike.
Yeah.
So I don't know why he's so. Who knows? The Jim.
We sell kits for the RR, but not the RX. I'm not familiar with that model. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool bike. It's a off the AC side, yes, and with the rectifier, it should work. Yes. So yeah, Jim, just call Chris or call MotoMinded tomorrow and order up unless you already have the headlight. But if you have a headlight for a 4-stroke, depending on whatever, you might need to buy that regular rectifier, right? Like, because and get that sorted out, because I had to do that with the S1 I put on my chainsaw mount, because I had to buy the S1 because no one had, whatever. It's like sourcing all these things, right, to get it to work. But I had to get the regular rectifier and wire that in and get it all working so it would work. But yeah, just Jim, all you got to do is get that regular rectifier, and it's super simple. And that uses a capacitor, right, too? I mean, that's how that thing works, right? It's a regular rectifier and capacitor.
Capacitors in there. Yeah, it's not just one, but yeah, there's some minor electronics, bridge rectifiers and capacitors. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right, guys, we are going to call it. Thank you, Chris, so much. Stay on the line here for a second after I hit the go button. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you comment below. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. Also, subscribe to MotoMinded on YouTube. Get him up there so he can be, YouTube famous like us. It's super fun to constantly edit videos. Actually, I have a good time. It's pretty fun, especially when you start giving Jeff Slavins a hard time and people get all fired up. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Hope to see you on the next one. We're going to keep these things at 6 o'clock at night and Thursdays through the winter. We'll go back to the mornings in the summer. I love you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.